Hi, welcome to 2-Minute Writing Tips. I'm Kirsten, and like many fiction writers, I have grappled with the question of whether or not to put profanity in my stories. Because sometimes a story doesn't feel quite right without it, and other times it just seems out of place. How do you tell if you should drop in the occasional curse word? There are a few things to consider, and one of them is the age of your audience. Obviously, swearing in any form is not acceptable in children's literature. In stories aimed at adults, swearing is fine if the story calls for it, and we'll go over that in a moment. The grey area is young adult fiction, which is generally read by older teens and young adults. You do not have to avoid swearing completely in these books, but it is probably safest to avoid the more hardcore terms, such as ones that start with the letter C or the letter F. For the rest of this discussion, we assume an adult audience, and the first thing to remember is that you have to be true to your characters and your story. A soldier in a war zone is probably going to swear more than a church minister. A hardened criminal serving time in prison will use more curse words than a stay-at-home parent who spends all day with the kids. Sometimes the profanity is not only acceptable, but needed. There are times when it would be odd to not have those words in there. Another thing to consider is that some genres lend themselves to profanity more than others. A war story or a crime story is one thing, but a fantasy or a romantic comedy? Yes, you can have swearing in there, but it's got to be well placed and appropriate to the characters and whatever's happening in the story. If you have included profanity in your story and you're not sure whether to keep it in there, I have a very simple test that generally works quite well. Copy your story or the section of your story that you're looking at to a new document and delete all of the profanity. Then read it through. If it flows well and feels right for whatever is going on for the characters, leave out the swear words. If it feels strange without the swear words, keep them in. That's it for today. I'll see you tomorrow.